so that each can be a successful, contributing citizen able to adapt to change and to successfully respond to the future. Do we have anybody here for public participation? Okay, seeing none, we will go on to recognition and acknowledgements. And first, we'd like to congratulate Michaela McGoffna for our Optimist Club Student of the Month, who's a 6th grader at Minot Consolidated School. Also, an exceptional job to Nathan Druin at PCS, a 6th grader who won the bus safety contest. Also, an outstanding job to 7 PRHS students, 1 Minot Consolidated School student, and 1 parent staff member at PCS for raising $8,500 for our Special Olympics 2015 lobster dip. Their team, named Fire Breathing Rubber Duckies, consisted of Maverick Archer, Robbie Cleaves, Brendan McKellen, Caleb Hodgkins, Becca Stone, Kayla Millett, Dawson Archer, and Donnie Drake. So thank you to them. That was outstanding. And also, I'd like to add that Minot Consolidated School is being nominated by the Maine Department of Education as a Blue Ribbon School, and maybe I'll have Kim tell you a little bit more about what that means.
Sure. So what happens is the Commissioner of Education nominates schools according to high levels of student achievement and also moving students in socioeconomic categories up further as well. And so what happens is the Commissioner nominates a school, and then the school has to fill out an application to apply. It's a federal program, so they'll be in the running for that. And Kim, would you add anything to that?
No, this is the very first time. I just, I think we should definitely thank Arthur, all the teachers. I can't take any credit for this at all. So whatever we do, I would definitely want to include Arthur, and I think everybody's going to be really excited. I just heard today.
Yes, very exciting.
Very, very exciting.
Yeah,
yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
There are no agenda adjustments, and we did check to make sure that we have a quorum because we have some people that are out tonight, and we do have a quorum, and Melanie is supposed to be here also in a little while. Presentation.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Tell me what Blue Ribbon School is, Kim.
It's a recognition that the Department of Education is it nationally. Kim, is it a national recognition?
Yes, it's a federal program, but each state commissioner nominates a school.
And there are 2 in the state of Maine that are eligible for nomination, Minot being one of them. So it's a recognition for, as Kim said, the educational test, data, as well as the socioeconomic.
Yeah.
I can read you the description that Kim has here. It says, the Blue Ribbon Schools program, sponsored by the U.S. Department of Education, honors public and private elementary, middle, and high schools that are either high-performing or have made significant strides in improving student achievement, especially among disadvantaged students. The program is part of a larger Department of Ed effort to identify and disseminate knowledge about best school leadership and teaching practices. Each year since 1982, the U.S. Department of Education has sought out schools where students attain and maintain high academic goals, including those that beat the odds. The Maine Department of Education works with the U.S. Department of Education to identify schools throughout the Blue Ribbon Schools program. And Jenny will do a presentation on adult education.
Okay. I'll stay over here, Mariella, and keep you company. It's a little heavy on that side, right? So my goal tonight is to give you a snapshot of where adult education is currently, and a little bit about where we're going and how we decided through our visioning process to get there. So adult education offers a number of programs and services. We offer high school completion, and that is, there's an option to go a credit-based high school diploma route adult education high school diploma route, or there is the option to take standardized testing to get a high-set diploma, which would formerly have been known as the GED that people are familiar with. So the state changed to what's known as the high-set test, and that's so those are the two options: credit-based or the high-set. We also offer adult basic education, and that's basic literacy and math or English language learning. It could be, we've been actually pretty successful with helping people to pass citizenship exams, to study for those, study for driving tests, and we actually have a student that comes in every year and asks us to help her recertify. She has to get ready to take a CNA recertification test every year, and so she likes to get help with that. So we have a tutor that does all of those things. We offer college preparation, and that, again, can be anything from coming in over the course of a few weeks to brush up on algebra skills to increase scores on an AccuPlacer test or some college entrance test, or it could be a formal college transitions program, which is a 14-week program that we're able to offer free through a college expansion grant with Lewiston Adult Education. We offer career advising, and we have a certified global career development facilitator on our staff. And so she's taken a career development class and been able to get a recognized certification to be able to help students prepare for careers. And that would include maybe exploration about yourself, your interests, what careers out there might match what you're looking for, or what turns up about yourself in some of the inventories that we do. She would also work on helping people to fill out applications, create resumes, and those kinds of career services. We offer computer classes, and we also offer community enrichment classes and programs that you see every semester in our brochure that gets mailed out. The college preparation and career advising, those two middle bullets, are really becoming more of a focus in the coming months and the coming years, probably, with the reauthorization of the Workforce Investment Act that's happened recently. The new, it's called the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. It really changes how the workforce system looks and has looked over the past decade, and it's expecting the Departments of Labor and Education to work more closely together to be able to increase, employment services, get people ready for careers, and also post-secondary education. Current demographics, the last semester, we served 166 enrichment students. We had 41 high school completion students working on high school completion, I should say, and 4 college preparation students. In addition to the 10 computer students at the end, I want to go back to the high school completion bullet there and just talk about the 16 to 20-year-old category that we serve, because that category generates subsidy and shows up on the ED 279 that we'll all be looking at soon. So with the 16 to 20-year-old population, about half of that 41 was in the 16 to 20-year-old range. And let me just check my notes here. And that is comparable. The subsidy is based on calendar years. So in 2013, January to December, we reported a number of students that we served, and it's all based on how many courses they take. I just did the numbers for 2014, and those are comparable to within a student or two, really, of being the same number. So the subsidy in the ED 279 is going to look pretty similar to what it was last year. To further break out that 16 to 20-year-old group, the green, but what we thought about was the 16 to 20-year-old population, the ones that we actually might have some control over access to are our own from Poland Regional High School. So we were looking at students that did not finish here at Poland, and that was over 3 years. So there are 43 students represented there in that chart. 20 of them either graduated from our program, have completed requirements to graduate from our program, or are currently attending. And that looks like, I believe 13 have completed and 7 are currently attending. 7 have registered at another adult ed program. We're able to look at a state database and tell that they're attending somewhere else. 11 did not complete our registration process, and 5 we had no contact with. Now the 5, I know at least 2 of the names on that list have moved out of state, so those were sort of beyond our control. The 11, while that kind of seems like a lot, we actually are somewhat happy with the fact that they took the first step and they came to adult ed. So they walked in our door, and sometimes that's the biggest hurdle. It's been our experience that over time, that population tends to do that. They'll start, they'll come in, they'll complete all of the paperwork, and they might come for an hour or 2 and then kind of just disappear for a while. We follow up diligently with these students, and I think it's like the leading a horse to water syndrome. We call them and we call them. If we don't see a student for a week or 2, no matter how old they are, we're calling them. And you know, we do what we can to get them to come, but in the end, when they come, it's usually because they're ready. So this past year, we went through creating a vision process. And we started by looking at our successes and what it was that we felt we were good at. And I guess I called it bragging rights. We talked about the things that we really feel like we do well. And then we sought input from community surveys, district emails, surveying our students to see, well, what do other people think we do well or not. And there were a couple of people that said, I didn't know adult ed existed, so that's something that we want to fix. We talked about our core values of the things that we do well, what do we want to make sure that we keep, and what do we, maybe what could move down in our priorities. And then we also looked at our larger district, and we want to align to the strategic plan and the vision of the district as a whole. This was just a Wordle that we came up with. We had sticky notes all over the place of the things that we thought we did well, and some of the things are just, we have experienced staff. We have our teacher has a special ed background. Our career advisor has a certification. We have a teacher, our tutor that works with our basic adult education students is an accomplished artist locally, and she works with our students on fine arts credits. So, and most of them, I think, have been in the program for 10 years. We have, we're good at supporting our students, giving them strategies, motivating them. So those were just some of the things we generated as things that we were good at. And then we looked at our mission and made sure, we wanted to align to that as we thought about our vision. So our mission and purpose is to provide adults of all ages and abilities with continued learning opportunities in a safe, flexible, and nurturing environment, and to enhance the skills and self-sufficiency necessary to function confidently on the job, in the family, and in the community. I received an email recently from a career advisor who was talking about career exploration with his students, and one of the phrases that he used was that we prop students up until they get their balance. And so that I thought that actually summed up our mission as, we're trying to get students to a point where they're self-sufficient. So looking forward, we did some visioning of our own, envisioning of our own individually in a staff meeting, and we all wrote narratives based on what we thought an ideal day in adult education would look like to us if we were in the midst of it. And those were really, they were really creative and exciting, and They addressed things from aesthetics to having a daycare, offering specific vocational programs, and I told them to dream big, so we did, and that was exciting. We then talked about the expectations of our program and what we think we should be responsible for, and that's to align with our mission, to facilitate transformation, and instill value for education and lifelong learning. And then we talked about what our expectations are for what we think students should leave our program with. So the completing student to us, what we did was we kind of just brainstormed a bunch of scenarios and ideals, and then we chunked them together into things that sort of fit, we saw they sort of fit into 5 categories. So the first one was, we want them to leave with a mindset of being able to accomplish their goals. So increased confidence and just having that I can attitude. The next one was, to go along with that, they all sort of build on each other, is increased skills. So that's academic skills, vocational skills. We want them to be able to advocate for themselves. And then we want to give them sort of a personal toolkit to be aware of themselves, but also to have some awareness of resources and supports that will help them with their goals. And then we wanted them to be prepared for the next step. So whenever a student completes in our program, I exit interview them, and I always ask them, so what's next? And we want them to know what their next step is and how to begin. And then we want them to be college and career ready. And this one we struggled with a little bit because we know that all of our students are not going to go to college, nor do they want to. But we want them to be ready in the event that they decide that they are going to take that step. And most of them will be employed someday, so being career ready. So the vision we created, and you'll see in parentheses at the end of each paragraph, those align to the last slide, those five things that we want them to leave with. So in 5 years, we envision adult education as an integral part of our larger unified school district, where awareness of programs and participation in enrichment is widespread throughout our tri-town communities. In 5 years, all students who leave our formal program will own defined goals and detailed next steps, have new knowledge of themselves, their aspirations, and their talents, and possess a confident belief in their ability to move on to further education and career ambitions. All students will have the personal, professional, and academic skills necessary to be successful with lifelong learning. And to facilitate that, we knew that we would need to address academic instruction, vocational instruction, and marketing. With the academic instruction, we're looking at college and career readiness standards, and again, so that's the subset of the Common Core standards. These college and career readiness standards are the adult ed Common Core standards, and that's part of the Common Core, just boiled down for adult ed. So that's new to us, just like the Common Core is new to others. And we know that we have work to do to align to those standards. And we need to increase rigor, but by that we're not talking about difficulty, we're talking about changing the way that our students think so that they are thinking more critically and deeply, and they're questioning assumptions, and it's less memorization and recall. We also want to review and update our high school diploma requirements because, again, that's going to need to align to the CCRS standards, and improve HiSET preparatory materials. So the company that offers the HiSET is ETS, which also does the SAT. They have changed their materials to also align to the college and career readiness standards, and so we need to build up our library of materials to prepare students for the test. With regard to vocational instruction, we want to increase student advising to further goals beyond high school completion, as we discussed, being ready to move on to other things beyond just completing high school. And that's actually something that the new workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act is really focusing on, is getting students to employment and post-secondary education. It's going to be to the point where if a student comes to us and wants a credential, it's not enough that they got their high school diploma. Our outcome measures are going to be based on whether or not 6 months from when they leave our program, are they in post-secondary education, are they employed? And then again, a year from there. So it really looks further out than just getting to that goal. We need to integrate career exploration and planning more consistently into programming and services. So that's just looking at adding career exploration to everyone that's in our program, or at least offering it to them. And marketing. We just want to increase advertising and publicity both internally and externally, and provide programs and services of varying types to reach a broad audience, ensuring widespread knowledge of adult education so that no one says, I didn't know we had an adult education program in our community. So just to leave you with something, we've had a lot of changes in adult education since the day I started, and we have a lot more to come. And we received an email from the State Director of Adult Education apologizing for all the things that have come down on us and all of the things that are coming. And but one thing she wrote really kind of made me feel like it embodies all of us in this room tonight. The most important evidence of success, the one we should take the most pride in, is the improved lives of the people we serve. Each high school completer, each certificate graduate, each new citizen, each enrichment student who enhances their sense of well-being, each parent who learns to read, each newly employed adult, each entering college student. The demands of this work are immense and can be relentless. In the words of Mother Teresa, the miracle is not that we do this work, but that we are happy to do it. And I will take questions if you have them.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. You talked about instruction, vocational and marketing. And of the three things that you listed, which would you see as the most challenging?
The academic instruction, the in the
vocational
objectives.
Or the marketing, your objective.
I would say that the academic instruction is really going to be the most difficult, because it really involves a lot of looking at what we have for materials and looking to see what meets those college and career readiness standards, and then changing or adapting or modifying, just getting them to the point where they meet the standards. So not only are we, even adding new materials, not only are we looking at the standards, but then we're looking at how do we bring materials to that point. I think the vocational instruction, I really think we're ahead of the game on. The marketing should not be a problem, but the academic instruction, and again, we're actually ahead of the game on that too, because our teacher, Sue LaSalle, she's been part of the college and career readiness. There's a state team that are responsible for, they're kind of the train the trainers, and she's been with that group since its inception. So she's really part of that lead group. So I think in both areas we're fortunate to kind of be on top of what we need to be. So.
Other questions?
Yes, Jenny, talking about the high set, and you talked about that test and needing new materials. Have you noticed anything about the rigor?
So far, it looks like the math has really increased in difficulty from what the test was last year to the new 2015 materials. I think that the math already scares almost all of our students. Mm-hmm. It scares me. Me too. But I looked at some of the practice materials, and and they're very scary. They're daunting. I mean, you look at it and you think, how will I ever be able to do this? So much more so than last year. So I'm hoping that, it's already a barrier. I'm hoping that it's not something that just sends everybody running. So definitely the math, and we'll see. Some of the others may be more difficult.
Other questions? I would say thank you, and I would also say that I'm impressed with the work that you've done in terms of reflection and mission and vision, and it sounds like you have a pretty tight team to get that kind of work done. That's really high quality.
It's a
work.
lot to do for 5 people.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim, are you going to need this?
I don't think so, but we better keep it just in case.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Next on our agenda is Christian Sands, our audit, and we have a presentation and we have some booklets.
Do you want to take your names? One page. Good luck to you.
All right, thank you and welcome, and we've been looking forward to this.
All right, thank you for having us. Christian Smith, I'm a director at Mac Page, your CPA firm. With me is Chad Dudley, he's the supervisor on the engagement. I'd like to go over the financial statements with you. You've got the packets there in front of you. I always like to start off with just giving people an overview of what the relationship is with your audit firm. We are independent auditors. We work for the board. We do work with management to perform the audit. And you've hired us to report on the financial statements, which ultimately are the responsibility of management. And we do assist with the preparation of the financial statements, but they are management's responsibility. And just a quick overview on the audit in terms of how it went. There were no issues in terms of performing the audit. There were no disagreements with regard to accounting policies or accounting practices, and no difficulties in general in performing the audit. So everything went well. I do like to just give a list of all the different reports that we issue. You don't necessarily have them all in front of you, and we're only going to go over really just, we're going to focus on the financial statements and maybe a little bit of other information, but we issue financial statements. We issue what's called a management letter. We issue another letter called the comments letter. There's another letter called the governance letter, which talks about how the audit went. We do a separate audit called the single audit. That's where we have to perform an audit in accordance with the federal standards with respect to grant money that you receive. There's also, as part of that, there's what's called a data collection form that gets submitted to the federal government along with your single audit. We send an unemployment compensation wage certification to the Maine School Management Association. And then we also have to issue another report to the State of Maine Department of Education that basically states that you have complied with Maine laws and regulations, and that the financial data you submit to the State of Maine agrees to the financial audit that we perform. And so that was submitted as well. There's no issues with compliance with Maine laws and regulations either. If you do want to look at your financial statement packet, I can go over a couple of highlights there with you. Pages 1 and 2 of the financial statement. This is what's called the auditor's opinion. This is where we express an opinion as to whether or not the financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, that the financial statements are accurate and they include all required presentations and disclosures. So we've issued what we call an unmodified or a clean opinion. That's the highest level of assurance that we can give you. Which, as I said, means that these financial statements have complied with the accounting practices. The page that probably most everybody's interested in here is page 30, the budget to actual results for the general fund.
Not much left.
point your attention to the third column there, the actual column. And then to the right, you'll see the variance, positive or negative with budget. So for the year, you had about $19.3 million in actual revenues, which was favorable to the budget by $314,000. For expenditures, you had about $19 million in expenditures, which is also favorable to the budget by about $266,000. So the bottom line for the year, you had an increase in your fund balance of $350,545. And that's actually significantly more favorable than that, because when you set your budget for the June 30, 2014 year end, you had planned to spend $230,000 out of fund balance. You didn't actually do that, so you end the year with $882,463 of fund balance. That works out to be about 5% of your total budget, and I tried to compare you to other districts that were similar in size or in the region, and it's, there's really quite the range. There's some schools in the 3 to 4% range, a couple in the 12 to 13% range. But as far as the state's concerned, what they look at is your unassigned fund balance. So you've voted to use, I believe, $275,000 or so in next year's budget. So that leaves you with a little over $500,000, and that works out to be about 3% of fund balance left over.
Is there a limit how much we can carry? There used to be, wasn't they?
Yeah, I've talked about that the last few years, and it's what the state calls the 3% rule. They don't want to see you carry over any more than 3% as unassigned. I haven't actually ever seen them enforce it, because there are some schools that have a lot more than that. I think it really just gets to a point where, if it exceeds that, they would look at it and say, well, you could reduce your local allocation, and they would, assume you would do that before they would take away any subsidy money.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. If there's any thoughts or questions on that. I did want to point out a couple more pieces of information in here. The school lunch program can be found on pages 13 and 14. That's on page, go to page 14. So you see for the year with the school lunch program had a net loss of about $73,000 before the subsidy from the general fund. General fund subsidized about $15,000. For the year it lost $58,000, and the ending net position is a deficit of about $83,000. This is pretty consistent with a lot of the other schools that we do, especially in this particular year where most of the schools we work with did experience a decrease in meal sales and an increase in operating expenses. I understand that there's increased federal guidelines for healthier meals, and didn't result in favorable results for many of the schools. So this is a pretty consistent result. Definitely want to work to try to have a break-even school lunch program if you can, but a lot of schools do end up having to subsidize their school lunch program.
You had mentioned that the school district funds about $15,000. Where is that number reflected on this page?
Let's see, it's the fourth line up from the bottom, transfer from general fund.
Right there. 15. Are you on page 14?
That was looking.
Sorry.
I retract my Found it. Thank you.
But we must have had to transfer a lot more to make it that 72,000 deficit.
Sorry, you have to?
Somewhere we took a lot of money out of our budget somewhere to make up that $72,000 loss.
Right, well, I guess, yeah, technically the money's been, the cash has been spent out of the general fund. It hasn't hit your general fund budget, but, ultimately it would have to be replenished at some point.
Yeah.
I think in the prior year you had transferred $40,000 to cover that.
So this has been, I want to add something, Christian. Before Mike Wilhelm came here, the general fund was contributing about $60,000 to food service regularly every year. That's what it was taking to keep them balanced out. When Mike came, of course, did all kinds of excellent work, and he took it down quite a bit, but we didn't really have any evidence to say that the less amount was going to work. There's also an article out in the recent ASBO, which is Business Manager magazine that I sometimes read, and it's talking exactly about what Christian said, which is a lot of school service. There are a lot of federal guidelines now that are requiring all kinds of healthy eating, which is a good thing, except that it's causing a lot of drop in food sales, so that you have a food service program that's trying to become self-sufficient with a lot of extra strict guidelines, and then dropping food sales on top of that. So it's really it's a problem for a lot of our school lunch programs in the state.
Just to point out some of the other information that's in your report, there is a lot of information in here. One thing that we did differently this year, which has been required, but it hasn't been included in your report in the past few years, is what's called the management's discussion and analysis. That's on pages 3 through 6. And the idea behind that is you can read those 4 pages and have a full understanding as to where the school stands and how it did for the year without having to have a deep knowledge of accounting and, technical information. You can read these 4 pages. So I would just recommend that, when you have a chance, that you could read those 4 pages, and hopefully that should answer some questions in terms of how the financial statements are set up and how the school is doing. Also in the financial statements, if you're familiar with the business financial statement, pages 7 and 8 provide you with information about the school on a full accrual basis or on a business basis. So on page 7, under governmental activities, you'll see some things there that are a little different, that aren't included in your funds. You see we've got the fixed assets of the school, $15.8 million. That's under assets, so that's basically your school buildings, your land, your buses. Those things are depreciated. And then if you go further down in the liabilities, you'll see we list your bonds payable. You can see that there's about $1,056,000 of bonds payable due next year, and another $4.664 million of bonds payable due in future years. So this is, like I said, it's like a business model. They want to have full disclosure of all your assets and all your liabilities here, which isn't required on the fund financial statement. So it just presents a different picture of where you stand. I think most people are also usually interested in your debt. What's your debt load and what are your long-term maturities. On page 24, that's the wrong page. 26, 27. Sorry, page 27. Nope, I'm wrong again. Page 28. Sorry. Page 28 shows you your debt maturities by year. You can see at the top of the page it shows you your maturities going out through the year 2026, but after, you can see in the year 2019, it's the last year you have a bond payment of over $1 million. The next year it moves down to about $500,000. So, your total debt load is pretty low overall. A lot of the other schools we work with have significantly more debt than you do. But of course, all of this is subsidized by the state, so when the debt goes away, that subsidy money goes away as well. So it's really a wash.
Can I ask a couple questions? So going back to on the food service, where you said it was 72,000, is that 72,000 the negative, is that all occurred in this year? It doesn't include, I didn't know if we started out the year with a negative?
Right, you started out the year with a negative 24,000.
Okay, so
24,338.
the amount that we went behind in this year, I guess is what I was getting at, is in that case would be actually under 50,000. If I took the 24 out of that, then the amount that we went behind.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, that's on top of. I'm sorry. So yeah, you lost 58,000 for the current year. There was 24,000. We were 24,000 in the hole at the beginning of the year, so
Right.
that totals a total of 82,520.
Oh, okay.
Is what the
Okay,
the
so
total bottom line
the
there.
58 is actually what occurred in this fiscal year?
Yes.
Okay, all right, okay. So when we go to look at budgeting, if we wanted to look at that,
Right. Yeah. You would look at hopefully try to eat away at that over a number of years, and then maybe hopefully if you can improve the results of the lunch program, that try to reduce your annual subsidy. Yeah.
and of course, it's never same from year to year.
Right, it's different, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. But
And-
always something to watch.
So then, when you said what page was it on? Our fund balance. Page was that on?
Page, you can look at that, 30.
30?
There's like 4 different pages you can find the number, but.
All right,
Page 30.
so fund balance, 882. But you made some reference to what we had, is that actually what we, at the end of 2014, what we have available, or have we already committed some of that fund balance?
Right, there is 270, let's see, 275,000 that you committed to the year we're in.
That is committed to the year that we're in. So really, if we're looking at what we have for a fund balance, it should be the 882 minus the 275.
Yeah, I mean, assuming you do actually use it, so. if you
Right,
want to-
right,
yeah.
right. But in terms of definitely being available.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, that would leave 607,000 available.
Okay.
Is there a limit what we can charge for hot lunch meals?
Yeah, I believe it is. It's capped out, that's set by probably by the federal government and passed through the state, but yeah.
Because we lost $331 a day for the hot lunch program this year.
So we would also want to go back to that conversation of what we have in debt, because I know that's a pretty hefty number. It's not
Yeah.
as big as that. Well, actually, it's probably pretty close to it.
Well, it's going to get worse, so we're putting the stuff on the menu and the kids don't want to buy it. Our debt's going to grow bigger on hot lunch.
So,
It's damned if you do and damned if you don't. That's one of them scenarios.
Yeah, and in conversations I've had with Tina, I know that she's working with Betty.
Yeah.
And that they are meeting regularly to address some of the issues
Yeah.
that you just brought up.
Okay, moving right along.
All right. Just a couple other things to make mention of. We do issue recommendations for improvements. So we did issue what we call a management letter, and there are no comments in that letter. That would be where if there were some, what we call a significant deficiency or a material weakness in internal control that could adversely affect the district. We didn't have any comments of those high nature. We do have a separate comments letter, which are just more best practices recommendations, and we issued 5 or 6 things in there with regard to just considering changes in policies and practices with regards to some of your expenditure policies and password protection and those kind of things. We've gone over those with both Kim and Tina and Wendy as well, and they've accepted them and have plans in place to make changes for next year. We do review the comments we had in the prior year. Those have all been satisfactorily corrected as well. So, like I said, they're just kind of like housekeeping issues, and we always do look to try to offer recommendations for improvement where we can.
Any other questions?
I've got a question, not so much for Christian, but also for Tina and maybe Louis Wonder. I just find it very difficult for me to digest something like this on the spur of the moment like this. We've always done it like this. Every time either Willett and Associates or Matt Pages come in, the book is here when the auditor is here. We don't have an opportunity to look through this, to formulate our own questions. I mean, each one of us here has a fiduciary responsibility to this district. And to slam this at us without giving us the opportunity to look through it, I think is irresponsible. And I
Yeah,
think
and-
this needs to change.
And I think that's an easy thing to change, that we can have it available at a time for people to look at.
But like I said, this is how we've always done it. We've always had this report for 8 or 9 years that I've been on this board. It's always been here when the auditor's here. And we need to hurry through this to look for questions, and I personally can't do it. So I don't know what to ask.
Well, I think that's a simple request, that we have it available ahead of time, so that you
Is
do
it
have
a
that
problem?
option.
No,
No.
it's not a problem at all. I think that the reason that it's been done that way is because it can be very confusing, and so it felt like, let's get the auditors here to kind of help us walk through it, to understand it, and then afterwards, we can look through that with a better understanding and framework. I think that was the intention, but if that's not working for us, then there's no reason we have to do it that way.
I can't speak for everybody, but it doesn't work for me.
With some of our other schools, we do a meeting with the finance committee. So it'll be a smaller group, and we do like a deeper dive. Maybe it's an hour, might be an hour meeting, and we really go through it in more detail. And then the finance committee reports to the board. In that case, we don't do two separate presentations, but certainly depending on what you want, we could set it up that way, and we could definitely set up the presentation differently to really kind of dig into the information. It definitely it's not a 15, to really understand it, it's definitely more than 10 or 15 minutes.
And I think maybe it's for the people who volunteered for the budget committee. I mean, those people really need to have an idea of what this information is telling us moving forward for the budget for next year, so.
I'm looking to Kim. Kim, did you capture that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I got it.
Thank you.
But certainly, just let us know what you would like, and we can provide you with what you like, so whatever you want.
Thank you, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
You know what I want? I want you to come back next year and say we got a $3 million surplus. Yeah, that's the wish. Santa.
Okay, we need to act on the minutes, which is approving the regular meeting minutes of December 8th.
Move to accept.
Steve, and we have a second from Aaron. Is there any discussion, question? Scott?
I have a question on page 2, under budget committee member section. The way that it reads with the motion and the second, it looks as though I seconded a motion for me to be the budget committee chair. Now, I may be difficult, but I'm not sadistic. I don't remember doing that. I don't think I would have, I would not have seconded a motion to make me chair of the budget committee.
It looks like
I did
if
it.
Love nominated, then Julie was the second.
Right.
Well, the motion reads by
Right.
Julie that Scott is the chair of the budget committee, and then it's underneath it says seconded by Scott. No way. So if you can please remove that from any record that you have, that would be very helpful to me. Thank you.
Okay, and Steve?
Yeah, presence absent last meeting. It said Ed, there was 3. Ed, Annette, and Aaron.
Yep.
Okay. Any other discussion? So we have a motion and a second. Do we want, I'm just wondering, do we want to approve it with the changes?
Well, we always,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so that's your motion, then, that it be
Yeah.
approved with the changes. And is that your second, Aaron?
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Hold on a
I
minute,
have to
please.
abstain, don't I? Because I wasn't here.
You can't.
Okay, so that would be.
I think you only.
It's
Oh,
unanimous.
unanimous. If we could just do that all night, that would make things easier. Okay.
Okay, so, old business, approval of the financial statement.
Move to accept.
Second.
Steve and Doug. Do we have any discussion? Questions? Tim, do you want to go through some highlights?
Sure, yes, please. So at this time of the year, these are the December financials, we should be somewhere around 50%. That's about where we should be. But you'll notice some areas that are either higher or lower, and for example, anything around salaries and benefits, if we have someone leave who didn't take insurance and we hired somebody who is taking insurance, you might see some numbers that are off from that 50%. You'll also notice in the schools that heating fuel, Gary has encumbered that, so those numbers will be low because that money is already encumbered. You'll also notice that money, for example, for field trips will be high or look like it's unused, and that's because Tom Kelly has just billed the schools for that. So that will change as well. And then you also notice that property casualty and liability insurance, we have paid that bill, so you'll see that that's at like 11% in many of the schools, which is great. That means that's really left. So if we start with Minot, and we take a look at page 4, I want to draw your attention to tuition to charter school. And what you see there is a negative number of $6,900 about. So we have a line for charter school money, and it's located under PCS, because that's where we had most of our kids at that time. Now we have 2 students from going through charter school from Minot, so it looks like there's no money there, but there is money there. It's just under the PCS line. Also, if you notice also on page 4, the teacher substitute line is still at 76%. That's very good. Different years, you have different health issues, and sometimes that can run low. But our teacher sub line is doing well. Custodian sub line as well at Minot is very high still, which is great. And the bottom line for Minot is 53%, which is exactly where we want it to be. Moving on to Elm Street School, if you take a look at page 7, and you look at equipment, and supply asset is written in parentheses next to it, you'll see that that's still at a full 100%. And that's because Gary had budgeted for a lawnmower, and then because of good fiscal planning on his part, he still had enough money in his budget last spring, and he was able to purchase that lawnmower. So that's money that will be available for other facilities needs that are going to arise this year. In Elm Street School, the teacher subline is still at 80%, which is very good. The custodian subline, also very good at 75%. And the bottom line overall is at 52%. So again, right where we want it to be.
Question?
Yes.
Back to the equipment supply asset line.
Yes.
Does that line need to be used for an asset?
Since it says supply asset, I'm thinking that would make sense, but I don't know that for sure. So, but I know that it would make sense, that's where he put in for the lawnmower, which would be an asset for us.
Right.
But I will check on
Just
that,
curious.
Scott.
Just curious.
Okay. All right.
May I ask a question? On that same thing, not to hold up, but on page 7, why did we not budget anything for the principal tuition reimbursement?
So,
Why was there nothing ever there for it?
Principal tuition reimbursements.
Yeah, it's top quarter of it. There's a negative $4,900 number there, but it doesn't look like we put anything in the budget for it.
Okay. So what happened was, we had a different principal at that
Yeah.
school,
Yeah.
and that person wasn't planning to take any coursework.
So we just didn't allocate anything?
So she didn't put anything in there.
Okay.
And now we have a new principal
Yeah.
clearly who is doing that.
No, absolutely, yeah, okay.
But that can be moved from other lines as well.
Okay.
That, and we'll make sure, as we're starting that internal process now, we'll make sure that we are definitely budgeting for that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, certainly. Okay, moving on to Poland Community School. Teacher subline is at 77% on page 11, which is great. The custodian subline is low here, 30%, but again, that can happen at any time, anywhere, depending on any health issues that come up. But lines are healthy in the other schools, which is a good thing. If you look at page 12, you'll see that the PCS bond principal is 0 because it has been paid for this year. We still do need to pay interest, but that's why that's 0. We've made that payment. And again, what I said about the tuition to charter schools, you'll see that money in the line here under PCS. That's where that will come from. Again, the trip transportation, Tom has just billed out, and the way he bills schools is by adding in wear and tear, fuel cost, insurance, driver cost, and all that comes to $3.64 per mile, and that's how he does that billing out. PCS, bottom line, is at 53% at this time, which is good. Bruce Whittier Middle School. On page 15, you'll notice under the classroom lease purchase, it's a 0. That's because that yearly payment has been made on that modular.
Substitute line 2 is
Sub-
negative.
Ah, thank you. Substitute salary is, yes, in the negative there. So again, if you have some health issues
We
happening.
can just keep shifting around.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Wasn't that an issue last year
I thought
too?
so,
Are we
too.
just under budgeting
That's what I
there?
thought.
Is that, 'cause
We-
I remember we had that discussion during the budget process
Mhm.
last year.
Yes,
That
yes.
It seemed that we were always under budgeting there.
For substitute. And I think it's hard to predict, because if somebody ends up going on a maternity leave, that can impact, for example,
Mhm.
it's hard to predict all those things. one thing that we are aware, I know the custodian substitute lines, that was something I remember talking about last year during the budget process, because they were really low across the buildings. So far, outside of this one in PCS, we are doing okay with those, but it is something, as we go through the process, to think about, do we put some extra money in those lines? And again, it's just so hard to predict each year.
Is the difficulty in finding ed techs to fill some of the positions that we've got?
We've had, yes, Holly would talk about the difficulty in filling ed tech position, or she would talk about, I let her. She'd talk about the difficulty in filling ed tech positions. We've also had a real hard time filling a couple other, like some bus driving positions, as well as some custodial positions. So we have been using our one sub that we have quite a bit.
So if we have an unfilled position and we're using a sub to fill that position, does that come out of the regular line of that position, or does it come out of the sub line?
So we would use it out of the sub line if it's truly a sub, if we can't hire somebody.
Right.
So take, for example, we have a sub who does a wonderful job but doesn't want a full-time job.
Yeah.
So the agreement is he's going to sub until we can fill that. So we're paying him at a sub, but there is some money there if we're not paying somebody as we look for somebody, because our hope is we will eventually get somebody and we will be paying them that money.
Because I would think that if they're subbing for an empty slot,
Right.
that it would come out of the regular
Salary thing.
instructional line rather
Well-
than the sub line, because the sub line is for when you're already paying a teacher and you need to pay the sub.
A sub as well. It depends on, and it's also who we're using.
Okay.
So for example, you know about the insurance piece that's coming
Yeah,
up, and so we
yeah.
can't have people working too many hours and
Right.
things like that. So we may be having to switch some things around and use people.
Okay.
So what I'm going to say, Mary Ellen, is I want to take a note on that and
Okay.
then get clarification. I know our current custodial sub does not want to be in the position, but is happy to help us out until we're able to fill.
All right.
So, but I'll take a note. Okay, and then bottom line for Bruce Weider Middle School, 54%, which is great. Moving on to Poland Regional High School, if you look at page 20, you'll notice the line that says 16 to 20 tuition, and that's at $66,000, 100%. That's the subsidy that we get for 16 to 20-year-olds in adult ed, and we just have not yet transferred that money to adult ed. That's why that's still at 100%. Also, if you notice a few lines down from there, tuition paid to other SAUs, and we are a little overdrawn on that. Gould Academy is allowed to charge some extra money for an insurance situation, and that's where that is coming from. So it's something to keep in, I don't know the details behind that, but that's why we are a little bit under on that one.
So, I'm sorry, so when we send a child to another school, we pay their insurance as well, that school doesn't pick up?
There's something that they charge us for an insurance. That's what Wendy told me. I
Okay.
don't have the details on that, but I can find out.
Yeah, I think I might like that answer,
about that,
because if
yeah.
we're sending somebody there, then we can't be, in my thought process, we shouldn't be liable for
Other,
insurance costs at another building
Yeah,
that
they-
we're not in control of.
they're unique in some way. Other academies don't do that, but they are allowed to by the government, so I'll find out what
Okay,
the
thank you.
details are.
How many, we don't have many students tuitioned out now, do we?
We have not too many.
I mean, because
I'm
once
trying to
we
think, we've
come,
got students in charter school.
the charter school, we no control
I know
of,
about
but
that.
when we made our issue 16, I thought we did away with all tuition students outside.
So we're getting to the end of the agreement with Raymond. So we still have Raymond students who can come to Poland Regional
Right.
High School, right? So we're getting to the end of that agreement.
But that's them coming here, I'm talking about us going somewhere else.
I had thought that there was an exception for one to go to Hebron,
Yeah.
just one
Siblings
family,
of-
but
Siblings, yeah.
I thought there was
Maybe this one going to Gould's a sibling of one that
I
already
think
went.
it
But
was-
how long did we, Mary, how long did we extend that for?
Well, I think it was just that family, and it may be that all of those students had left, but that's a possibility that it could be.
Yeah, Tina,
Yeah.
Tina.
Yeah.
Kim, find out why that student's going there and how. But it seems like when that would've been all over.
I would have thought it'd been over a couple of years ago.
I would have thought so too.
So, yeah, somebody, we have a policy on that.
I had the same question written down. I wasn't sure.
Okay, good.
Okay.
See, I'm picking up.
All right. Excellent.
I missed a
Excellent.
couple meetings, but I'm on it.
That's right. That's good, that's good. Okay. Poland Regional High School is at 54% overall, which is great. If you move on to page 22, under summer school, K-8, you'll notice that bottom line is 18%, and that represents some savings for us because everything from summer school has been paid out at this point. Then you move down to summer school 9-12, and you see that we are below at 17%. And that is, and that's not a surprise to us because we do charge students to attend summer school at that level, but it's not enough to cover the cost of the program. And yet it's imperative. We need to offer for students for credit recovery. And if you take a look at page 24, and you look under the very top one, student assessment system-wide, we're a little bit low there. And that is the money that we used to pay for the NWEA testing, which we do for many students for 3 times a year, but at least twice a year. And we started testing second graders last year. So this is why it's a little bit low there. And we'll make sure to budget for that in the future. If you look at gifted and talented, you'll notice that the teacher's salary is at 80%. And that's because we had budgeted for a second teacher, and we've been unable to fill that position. And we still are not closer to that yet. But we continue to try.
Have there been any applicants?
There were a few applicants, but they didn't have the endorsement.
Gotcha.
And we will not get subsidy for a teacher who doesn't have the correct endorsement. And remember, everything goes for the next year, so it'd be like 2 years before we got it. Plus, we want somebody with that endorsement because that person is qualified to be that teacher. And gifted and talented, you need to have some good talent there. I mean, you need to know what you're doing with working with students. If you look on page 26, and that is RSU committee, you'll notice that the purchase professional service line is 11% low. This includes the cost of the audit. It also includes the cost of having good decisions come to our, do you remember our board retreat on Saturday for the strategic plan? So that's in there as well. Let's see, if you look under central office, which is right below that, you'll look at our bottom line and see that it's at 44%, which is a little bit low. And if you look at the middle of page 27, you'll see temporary office staff salary. We don't have much in a line in case we should need to get a sub, because generally if someone at central office is out, we don't have a sub. We cover for that person, right? But if there is a longer term situation, we don't have the money for it. And so that's why we're a little low there. Look at page 28, Special Ed Director's Office. This is one I think that we're all very interested in. If you look, let me see, if you look down about 3/4 of the way down, tuition paid to educational service agencies. And that shows us right now at 54%, which is good. Tina had brought it up to this board a month, or either last month or maybe both, last month and the month before that we had some concerns. And we had concerns. Let me explain first what this is. Students who are in an out-of-district placement, either because our IEP team said this is what they need to meet their learning needs, or because they've moved into our district and they're already in an out-of-district placement, and that needs to continue. And of course, we then pick up the cost of that because they're our students now, which is what it should be. But students can move in and out, and it's very hard to budget for that because you just don't know which of our current students could end up rising, and the IEP team could decide they need an out-of-district placement. It's very hard to predict that. It's very hard to predict families moving in or out. So again, if you have a family moving in who's already in out-of-district placement, we then begin to pay for that. If we have a family, one of our families who's in out-of-district and they move to a different district, that new district then begins to pick up the cost of that. So this can really fluctuate back and forth. So I worked with Holly this week to take a really close look to see where are we exactly right now? Like with the current numbers and the numbers of students we have and out-of-district placement, where are we right now if things were to stay the same? Now, the big caveat is things are likely not to stay the same. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to bring this up at every board meeting and just keep you apprised of where we are with that. But the news is a little bit better than it was a couple of months ago. We need to check, Wendy was out today unfortunately, but we believe that most of our billing is current, but there might be a couple things still left that we don't have, so just know that as I give you this information. It looks like at this point we have about $170,000 remaining in that line, and if everything were to remain the same as it is right now, we're going to end up paying out somewhere, we're approximating $270,000. So we would be at this point, again, if everything stayed the same, about $100,000 lower than what we need to be. And I know I'm repeating myself over and over again, but I want to make sure that I'm really clear in that that could change, and that could go down, or that could go up. We're just going to have to watch it and keep you apprised.
Question?
Yes.
What is the educational service agent? Who are they?
They could be places like the Real School, Collaborative School, Margaret Murphy. So they're schools that they can offer students and meet students' needs that were unable, or any public schools unable to meet inside.
How often are those paid? Monthly?
So they
Where
get,
all those changes happen?
yes, we pay by the day. So if a student is sick and doesn't go to school, we're not billed for that day. So as far as when they do, I think it's quarterly, but Holly, I'm looking to you.
No, they bill monthly.
It's monthly, it is monthly. Okay.
So I should keep my kid home with
No. Okay.
Be happy to stay.
Okay. All right. Then if you looked at page 34, in transportation, you'll notice that the bottom line there is 43%, which looks a little lower than the 50% we expect. However, that's expected and normal because Tom has paid off insurance, he's paid off the bulk of the bus payments for this year, and so he's right where he should be. There's no concern there for that 44%. That's it for my review.
Anybody have any other questions for Kim? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Melanie, were you in favor of accepting it?
Yes.
So unanimous? Okay.
Easier.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, under old business, budget committee meeting dates. We had talked earlier about the sort of the start of that process and whether we wanted to do the Thursday or the Saturday, and had kind of decided that we'd like to have those major school presentations all in one day, because that way we didn't have to keep going over the same ground and catching up at each meeting. So that would mean we'd either do an all-day Thursday and all-day Saturday, and I think in the conversation last time, we sort of said we would go with the Thursday. Do you want to
Talk to that a
about
little bit?
that?
Sure. So just for a little bit of context, when Tina and I began to plan the budget meeting dates for this year, we looked back at what we had done last year and the process we had used and reflected on that. And we felt that that process worked pretty well. We liked a lot of the structures that we had in place, things like having principals and directors come and share specifically about the needs in their schools and their departments was very helpful because they know their business intimately and can answer questions very well. And that just helped all of us with that big picture. We also felt that making sure that we shared information about facilities and transportation made it clear what was needed in order to make sure students and staff are safe. And including a representative from each of our towns allows us to hear both ideas and concerns and to address those. It also allows those town representatives to have good information from our committee to go back when they talk to their councils and or board of selectmen. So we liked all of those pieces and would like to keep all of that in place again for this year. Our goal is always to be transparent and make sure that the budget committee members fully understand what our needs are and how our proposals and requests are going to impact student learning and safety in that case. But we want to do two things differently this year from the way we did them last year. Number one, we're going to begin our budget meetings later this year so that we will have, or very soon have, the ED 279, and that's the state subsidy. If you remember last year, we started in late January, and the subsidy didn't come out until late February or even into March, I can't quite remember. So we were making guesstimates about what we thought that would look like, and it worked out. However, if the subsidy came in, it was substantially less than what we were going off of, that could have huge impact on our process. So it doesn't make sense to get too far developing our budget before we actually know what the ED 279 tells us about our subsidy. So we're going to start our first meeting, as Mary said, on February 26th, which is that Thursday. So we're hoping that we'll have the ED 279 in hand that day, but if not, very, very soon, like within a week or two after that. The second thing that we want to do differently, Mary just mentioned it, is that last year we had 1 or 2 schools present at one meeting, then we waited a full week, and then we went to have another school to present. And what we noticed was that we spent a lot of budget meeting time reviewing the details and information that had been shared at previous week's meetings, because you can't keep that all together. And so we felt like we weren't as efficient as we could be, and we worried that people were missing big picture because of all that. Now, wait a minute, what did they ask for there? What did facilities say? That kind of thing. So, although it's virtually impossible to keep those details straight, we felt like, what could we do to help it be clearer for people? And that's why we thought we would do the all-day budget workshop that first day. That way we could have all the schools present and special ed present, and hopefully time for technology as well. And that way we'll be able to see which needs are consistent across the schools, what we're asking for, how it connects within the district, and we'll have a really good picture of what's going to impact student learning, what do we need to do that well. And that way people won't be saying, what happened 3 weeks ago, what happened 4 weeks ago? It will all happen in that same day. So we know that when we brought this up last week, we know that it's hard for people to do an all-day Thursday because it means a day off of work. And we also heard budget committee members say they'd be willing to do that, and we really greatly appreciate that. What we're afraid of is if we would try to do it on a Saturday, we might end up in a situation like we had before, where people have busy lives, and that's finally the time to connect with family, and people can't make Saturday. And so we're going to go ahead for that 26 and ask for that one day this year to help us with that budget work. And again, we really appreciate it. We know that's a big gift. So last year we held 8 2-hour evening meetings, and we had 3 public information nights, 1 for each town. And this year we want to hold 1 full-day budget meeting on February 26th, and then 4 additional 2-hour evening meetings. And of course we'll have the 3 public information meetings, 1 in each town. And what we're doing there is we're investing basically the same amount of time. The budget committee will be investing the same amount of time. It's just that we think it'll be more efficient. We'll have a huge chunk of it done at once, and then feel like we're all on the same page, rather than spread out over weeks and weeks and months. And we feel like that'll just be very efficient. So I'm in the process now. I've been talking with Linda Chason about the possibility of getting that Thursday, those presentations filmed, so that they can be available on the website for anyone who wants to revisit them. It's not as easy as one might think to get all that stuff set up, but I'm going to work on it, and I'll let you know how far I get by next month.
One additional request for Linda.
Yes.
Could she add all these dates and times into the school board app calendar? Because right now, nothing is in there, and it's juggling schedules is not easy to begin with.
Yes,
So.
yes.
And I just wanted to attempt it, and we don't have administrative rights. I think she's the only one that might be able to add it.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Yes. Okay, thank you. So one last thing, Mary. Okay, so this isn't directly related to the budget, but I just want to make sure that everyone knows that Tina and I have set it up to meet with our town managers quarterly. And so we've met twice with Brad Plant from Poland and Arlen Saunders from Minot, and then John Hawley from Mechanic Falls. And actually, Arlen was sick, unfortunately, last time. But what we found is those meetings are really helpful as far as understanding the challenges that each of us, that we're all facing with different budgets, and understanding what some of the big things we're anticipating are going to be, and just having that open communication. So we're going to continue that, and we might increase as well. And Mary, you joined us on the last one, too.
So that's kind of our update in terms of budget meeting dates, and the budget committee member selection. You noticed in our minutes the members from this committee. But in terms of town representatives, Bonnie Payette will represent Mechanic Falls, Bernice Frazier, Minot, and Lionel Furlan from Poland. So those are our 3 town representatives that have offered to that will be our budget committee. Are there any questions around that or process? Okay, good. Thank you, Kim. New business. We had a donation and that was given to us, and when we received that, Tina looked into it, and really by law, and we'll have to make some changes in our policy, is that the board, in terms of a gift, needs to vote on accepting a gift. So I don't know if you want to talk about that?
The
Or?
PCS, yeah, so PCS and it was a giving tree. Do you want to talk about it, or you want me just to give a summary?
Yeah, every year at PCS, we have a giving tree out in the lobby in which staff identify needy families and students who are unable to provide, a full Christmas to their families, or holidays, I guess. And we had a gentleman walk in the door just before Christmas and asked to see me and said he would like to make sure that every student on that tree was taken care of, and handed me a check for $1,500 to make sure that everybody was provided for. Just
Incredibly generous.
incredibly generous, yeah.
So what we would need to do is vote, even though we have accepted that as a gift, we need to formally vote to accept that, and then we'll send him a thank you and a recognition for that. So,
Did we spend it?
Motion on the floor, right here.
okay.
Good, second. Good, second.
Wanted to get that in
Any
before.
Second.
discussion?
Discussion, no.
All those in favor? That was unanimous.
So why do we have to vote on to accept it?
Tina said when she was looking into it, state law says if there is a gift that's offered to the RSU, that the board needs to officially accept it. So we'll have
Is there a dollar amount?
Well, that was one of the questions that I asked her. We were going to go back and look at the actual law and see what the definition of gift is.
So, I don't know if I heard the answer. Did the
he's
funds
fine.
get used?
Yes,
Good.
yeah, we
Okay,
did,
good.
yes. We
Good
covered-
decision.
We actually were able to pick up a few more families that we didn't
Good.
feel we were gonna be able to cover. In addition, in consultation with the individual, we provided baskets for the family, like a clothes basket,
Oh, very cool.
with many things in it that food stamps don't cover. So laundry detergent and dish soap and those kind of things, so it was worked really well for us, so.
Good decision.
Does that rule pertain to PTA and those type of organizations as well?
Those were some of the questions we had, and Tina was going to pull up the law and read through it and see if it was more specific.
So I'll make sure I do that tomorrow.
Okay.
And that way I can let everybody know right away.
I would be interested to
I
find
think
out if that was the
PTA,
case.
community clubs, stuff like that.
I didn't hear your
PTOs.
question.
Yeah, I think they're an entity on their own, so I think it probably doesn't.
They're not, it's not a one-person type of donation, it's a nonprofit.
Right. But I think those are good questions that we can check into.
I'll do that.
Done a good job.
No, I just remember that when we had a discussion previously about donations, that as long as the person specified what they wanted it used for, I didn't think there were any other conditions aside from that, but
That's what I thought it
that's
was.
just what I recall.
That's awesome.
And the second thing that we need to discuss and vote on, there was a stipend position here at the high school, the National Honor Society stipend that was left off the contract. The association is aware of that. We did budget for it, so we just need to formally talk about putting that back into the budget, and then it would be added as a letter to the contract.
Sure.
Yes.
So we
You
have.
snooze, you lose.
Better luck next year.
Motion that
Tell you
we add
what,
the
we've got something?
National Honor Society stipend.
I'll second.
Jack and Missy. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Steve?
Any opposed?
You snooze, you lose.
Just to make a statement.
I guarantee if that was
I don't
us,
have to figure it out.
There are no policies. administrative report, you have 18 reports in the packet.
Don't get me near that water.
I had one question for Holly. You talked about not having, still able to fill that speech and language pathologist at Elm Street. So how are we covering the speech and language needs there?
So we were able to contract with an agency who can provide coverage for 3 days a week. It isn't quite meeting every student's IEP, but every student is getting services. And fingers crossed, we have a second meeting this week for a speech pathologist. It's very promising to fill a position for the remainder of this year and hopefully into the next year.
Good luck.
5 minutes.
And Scott?
I know Tom's not here, but maybe Kim, you can help me out with this. It says here that the transportation director and mechanic are driving daily.
Yeah.
I don't think our transportation director should be driving unless it's absolutely necessary. So I know that we are okaying a new hire for bus driver. Is this going to allow Tom to do what he is hired to do?
You hit the nail right on the head, Scott. I share your concerns with that. Every time we are unable to fill all of our bus driver positions, luckily that we're covered because our mechanics do have that license, and he does too. But I agree with you. We want him doing the work of the director, but if a trip needs to go out and we need a driver, he ends up doing it. So will it completely? I'm not sure it's going to completely do it, but it's going to help.
With all the people that was left.
But it's going to help.
It's going to help, okay.
It's going to help, yes.
Any other questions or comments?
So why don't you read through, just in case someone is listening, the openings that we have, and that would be a little advertising of what we need. Maybe folks out there might know of someone who's looking for.
For everyone or for?
Well, so we have, I'll just look through real quick. So we're looking for bus drivers. We're looking for ed techs. We're looking for a speech pathologist. And we still need a gifted and talented teacher, someone who's certified in that. So if someone's looking to figure out what they want to do for their specialty, it sounds like speech and pathology and gifted and talented are good areas to have your concentration in.
Send your applications to
Exactly. ASAP. Yes. Thank you, Mary Ellen.
The only thing I would add is Ryan. I know Ryan asked me to read at their literacy night. I don't know if you want to say when that is, in case there are other members here that might like to join us that evening.
Sure, so Elm Street School is hosting a Dr. Seuss night on Monday, March 2nd, which is his birthday. And we have 9 young readers already signed up. And then I'm trying to recruit high school students to do face painting. And there'll be cake and punch out.
If anybody's interested in that. All right, report. Our representatives aren't here, our student representatives. We don't have any reports from committees because we didn't meet in December. Report of the school board chair. Before tonight's meeting, I spoke with Scott Tyner, and Scott did want us to know that he's not going to rerun, that he's going to finish this term, but he's not going to run again. So if there are people in Minot that would like to encourage to take up nomination papers.
His term ends
His term ends this period, yeah. So I certainly let him know how much we appreciate the work that he does for us, but he's also doing a master's program. Felt that he was not able to put the time in that he'd like to here, so I just wanted to let you know that. Also, I have been participating in the teacher evaluation committee. We met for a half day last month. We're meeting tomorrow for half a day, and Carrie has taken a strong leadership role in that committee, as well as Tina. We're piloting that program, and sort of what we're doing now is we've got a solid framework, for the teacher evaluation program. We're filling in the gaps, reviewing it, and the administration is using that this year. And the major components of it, this is a pilot year. But I'm sure you'll be hearing a lot more than that about that, because we're working a lot on that. The other thing was if anybody's been at a selectmen or a council meeting that they'd like to report out on. And probably during the budget season, it's even more important that we be visible at some of those meetings if we at all can to answer any questions. We'll go to the report of the superintendent.
Tina, just real
Yay.
quick before we do, with your teacher evaluations,
Yeah.
I know Joe always used to comment and chime in on Tina's evaluation. Has anybody picked up that, or how does that work? I'm new to this.
Well, it's hers is in the spring, and we've had a committee that has dealt with that. So usually, probably March or so, we'll start to see who's willing to help out with that. So usually that is done in the June meeting.
Okay.
All right. So I have 4 things I want to share with you tonight. They include information that I got from the state about our overcrowding at the middle school, some information about the MEA, math, and ELA tests that are coming up this spring, and a report on some students we have who are truant in a general way, and then we have a little bit of information about our upcoming January 26th workshop day for staff. So the first thing is the Facilities Review Committee. I met with Stan Sawyer and Paul Johnson, who are school construction consultants, and Scott Brown, who is the Director of School Construction at the DOE. And I met with them on December 16th. I wanted to ask them questions and ideas about our situation. I wanted to understand what steps we should be taking to make sure that we're on the right track, and see if the state has any money available for anything. I also wanted to find out if they could offer us any supporting resources. And they gave me answers to all of those things. So it was a fantastic meeting. What I learned was that, first of all, we have to do a formal demographics and enrollment projection study. And they said that's absolutely imperative, because if our current enrollment is kind of a blip and it's going to decrease, it would probably make sense for us to look at portables. However, if we find out that the enrollment's going to stay steady and even increase over the next 10 years, then probably looking at building makes more sense. They also said the architect is going to want that information right off the bat. So they appreciated that we had done some work around live births and what we know to be housing developments, but they said you really need to have a business who knows how to do that and project to do that. So I've already been in touch with Planning Decisions in Portland, and I spoke with Rebecca Wandell there, who was very helpful. I explained her situation, told her that what we were going to need for information, and she's going to be sending me some options. She was hoping to do it by this afternoon so I could share them with you, but I haven't received them yet. So next board meeting, you'll hear about those. The next thing they gave me was all kinds of information on how to put out an RFP, a request for proposal, for your architect, because they said as soon as your enrollment projection study starts to get towards close, you're going to want to put that RFP out there. They gave me a guideline on how you do that. They even gave me interview questions for architects. They gave me a list of recommended architectural firms. They even told me where to advertise for them. So they were really, really helpful. The sad news is that right now there's no money from the state for buildings. Yeah, I know.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
I know, but they're always hopeful. And I always said, but things could change at some point, but not right now. The other thing, there is a very competitive application process you can go through for some support around portables, if the committee decides that that makes sense, depending on what our enrollment projection looks like. And so that's a process to go through, but that could be something if we go in that direction to find out. So we'll look further into that when we get closer to that. The one other little tricky piece of information is that you have to, if you decide that you're going to go towards anything, whether it's portables or the building, you have to do vernal pool studies, and there's just a short window. I'm looking at you, Mary Ellen, because you probably know all about this. There's just a very short window when you can do that in the spring. So I'm aware of that timing as well.
End of April.
End of April?
Depending on when.
Yeah.
When the snow?
Yes, yeah, and so that's something to keep in mind too. But I was thrilled to get all that information. They affirmed that what we've done to date is good, and I feel a lot better about the decisions that we're making and the steps to take next. So that's really good.
Question.
Yes.
The projection, enrollment projections, does that have anything to do with the feasibility study? Are they in any way tied together?
So what the enrollment projection will do is just look at our demographics, look at history, and then look at building that's coming, and it is a projection. So they do the best they can. As far as the feasibility study goes, do you mean could we use the money?
No, I'm just wondering if those two obligations are tied in any way.
Well, we're going to need that to retain an architect, because the architect is going to want to know that information anyway, and then the architect will help us with the feasibility study.
So nothing happens, no money that we've set aside for the feasibility study is going to be expended until we get those projections.
Right.
Got it.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And they
Because if the projections indicate that portables will do the trick, there's no feasibility study.
Right.
All right, I scaled that.
Well, it's scaled that way, exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
thank you.
Certainly. So the second thing I want to share with you is that you've probably heard us talk about kneecap testing over the past several years, and principals have shared that data from their schools and their students. So this year, it's going to be a new set of tests. They're called the MEA, right, Main Educational Assessment, ELA, English Language Arts, and Math Assessments. Also related to Smarter Balanced. You may have heard us say Smarter Balanced before as well. These assessments are aligned with the Common Core standards, so the rigor is definitely very increased. We took the pilot tests last year in several of our schools, and this happened all over the country. The pilot tests showed us that about 30% of Maine students were able to meet the standards, or were proficient at that time. So that just gives you an indication of the rigor that's going to be involved with this. That's very different. On the kneecap test, our students have always done at or even better than state average. So these tests are going to be hard. There are 3 parts to these tests, each for the language arts as well as the math. The first part is a computer adaptive test, which means that the student answers questions online. Depending on how the student does, they get certain questions. So if they're answering everything with ease, the questions are going to get a little harder for that student. If the student's really struggling with questions, they're going to get a little easier. So that helps with test security, right, in a certain way. But that's one part for ELA and one for math. Then there's a classroom activity that the teacher does with students to offer them context around the next big part of the test, which is called the performance task. And an example of a performance task might be, for example, that a student reads several articles, right, several resources, and then needs to write an opinion piece based on what they read in those articles. So it's going to be a matter of really integrating a lot of skills.
And how old is this?
This is for grades 3.
Okay.
3, 4, 5, 6, and 8.
Disgusting.
If the testing changes based on the student's ability to answer and so forth, how do you create a baseline when it seems, in my mind, you're going to have children at different levels, so you're almost like comparing apples and oranges?
We're gonna have to
because you've
start
got
giving
kids at different levels who are
parents
getting different parts of the test.
when their kids get into.
So the NWEA tests are adaptive as well. They do the same kind of thing, and that's how they're able to project where students should be in the spring after a year's worth of instruction. So that is one part of the test. They're all going to be getting at certain skills. So it's not just random. It is
Right.
skill based to see which skills students have really acquired and mastered, and to what level. And like I said, there was not a huge number of students proficient in the pilot test, so I'm curious to see. They took the pilot test and they apparently done some good studying around that, and we'll see what happens this year. So, but we'll be on it, and we're going to start. There's going to be some teacher training that's necessary for this as well. Plus, our teachers are very interested in knowing. They want to make sure they administer well. Of course, they want to make sure that our students are prepared. All of those things. So, January 26th is our next workshop day, and part of that time will be dedicated to test administration for these tests. Part of it will be around the new teacher evaluation system, because we're making a lot of effort to make sure that we're consistent across schools around the teacher evaluation system. And then there'll be some, what I call more fun things, around PD on January 26th. Any other questions?
Are we going to start sending handbooks home when kids start kindergarten for parents? Here, study this, because in 3rd grade.
Rigor is a good thing. It's just a matter of making sure that we have the resources to support students meeting that rigor. That's
Yeah,
the
I
hard
have the
part.
teachers.
Yeah, yeah. So the last thing I wanted to share with you is truancy. So you know that Maine has an attendance law that basically says that the parent responsible for the school-aged child is also responsible for making sure that child attends school. And truancy is defined for elementary students as 5 consecutive unexcused days, or a total of 7 unexcused days. Not talking about sick days or somebody has the flu, but actually unexcused days. For grades 7 through 12, it goes up a little bit, so it's 10 full days of unexcused or 7 consecutive days of unexcused, and that's the trigger. So our principals do a great job of watching their students' attendance, and when students start to get close to those consecutive days or the total number of days, they'll start reaching out to families to find out, what's going on, is there something we can help you with, is everything okay, that kind of thing. Once a student hits that trigger, the different schools have support teams. It may be a student assistance team or a student support team, or the high school actually has like an attendance team in place to take a look specifically at attendance issues. That team sets a meeting with the family. The family comes in and they talk about what can we do. We want to create an intervention plan here to get your child back into school. Part of that meeting has to be taking a look at how the absences have affected that student, and if there are future absences, what that might do. For example, it could be that a child's status in 9th grade is compromised if he or she is not attending school on a regular basis. So all that information needs to be made clear to both the student and the parent in hopes of supporting the intervention plan. If the intervention plan doesn't work, and I'm giving you just the shorthand of this, a lot more work goes into it than just a little meeting. People are constantly reaching out. Guidance is reaching out, principals, everyone, teachers. However, if the school cannot get an intervention plan together to be followed and it's not working, then it gets referred to me at the central office. And then I have a meeting with the family and the student because it is a civil violation. And then I need to talk to the parents about what are possible consequences if they don't ensure their child is back in school. And that can be all kinds of things, like it could be a fine up to $250. It could be that if it goes to court, that the court determines they have to go to school with their child, or they have to do community service, or they need to take a parent training course. I mean, there are things there, and it's all because at some point the kids are in school, right? And what kids graduating. So that's what happens when a student is truant. So currently, at PCS, Elm Street School, and MCS, we do not have any students who are officially truant, which is a really good thing. And I attribute that to families making sure students are there, and to our principals who are also on top of that. Rick is watching a student who might be getting near that point and is already making efforts to contact the family.
Are there any others in any other of the 3?
Yes. Oh, no.
No, any other of
No,
the 3?
we're in good shape there. At the middle school, this fall, we had a student who was truant, and they were working with the family. The family has since decided to homeschool the child. And we have one other student who's currently truant, and a meeting is set up this month with the family and the school to work on that. So our principals and our teachers are really on top of these
Only
things.
one in the
which
high
is great.
school, you said?
I'm sorry, what?
One in the high school?
One at the middle school.
Oh, one in the middle school.
So at the high school, we currently have 4 truant students. So the Attendance and Truancy Committee, that's the name of the committee there, they are designed specifically for dealing with students who are having a hard time getting to school. So they are working with 3 of these students and their families, setting meetings, setting intervention plans. One student has been referred to me because they've been unable to get the student to come back to school. So then it takes it to that central office level. So that's where we are with those students. Jen.
Now, if you're not able to get the family and or the student to engage,
yeah, that's a
I mean,
great
I guess
question.
is the fallback option always to say you are going to homeschool? Are there things they have to follow when they attempt to do that?
Right. Yes. 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 It's not. Yes. It's not very rigid. Let's put it this way. But there are certain things they have to do. But if a student and a family doesn't engage, we don't stop trying, and we put a plan in place anyway, and we keep reaching out. And it's only after numerous attempts and some very creative thinking. We've actually had a guidance counselor go to our family's home more than once to try to talk and see what supports we can put in place. But when it gets to the point where we feel like the days are really accumulating and we're not able to, then it comes to the central office. And what ends up happening is after I meet with a family and do a formal letter, if the truancy doesn't change, then I actually turn the facts over to law enforcement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they can take it to the district.
Wow.
Should end on a happy note. Let's think. Okay. Oh, and I hope everybody
That is a
received
happy
this.
note.
Yeah, this is,
That is the happy
here's the
note.
happy note. I hope everyone received this at home. You should have, I think actually in December. There was a great collaboration with Jenny Rose. Thank you, Jenny. And the schools about getting things together.
Just figuring you're part of the bill.
Thank you, Jenny. And if you had a chance to look through it, what you'll see is the results of our strategic planning retreat on that Saturday. We tried to put all that as simply as we could in here so that everyone's aware of how many things didn't change, but also of a few things that did.
Okay, and support staff, new hires and resignation changes. Are those?
Sure, yes. So we were talking about all the positions open, Mariella, but we actually have 3 new hires, which is great. So Melissa Wing is our new school bus driver. Scott, that will help with Tom. Now, Janine, I always want to say Pauvin, but it's fellow Potvin. Yes. I just do that with Calais, too. They're like it's callous. Okay, so Jean Potvin is Elm Street School part-time secretary, so very happy to have her there. I'm watching Ryan nod. And then Katie Shaw, Minot Consolidated School Ed Tech 2, recently hired as well. So welcome to all of those people. We're very happy to have them join the team. Resignations, we have Jeffrey Lacombe, who was food service manager for RSU 16. If you looked in your packet, you'll see his letter, which is very nice and very appreciative. And also Carolyn Kennison, Ed Tech 2 and 3 PCS, has also resigned.
I have a question, Mary. On the new hire for the bus driver, there's certifications. Don't they have to have a special driver's license to drive a bus?
It's a special designation, yes.
Okay, but it's not under her certifications, it's not listed here.
Okay, I'm sure that it may not be listed, but I'm certain.
Okay.
Tom's all over that, yes, and I will definitely.
When he's not driving a bus.
Good point, yes.
Okay, we have no communications, no executive session. We might have motion for adjournment.
So moved.
And second. And that's seconded. All those in favor? Yep.
Anonymous. I mean, Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, I mean, every time, you know what, every question is good, because what I don't know, I go back and